And welcome back, and we want to welcome Dr. John Hovannisian from Harvard Eye Associates. Thanks for joining us.
How are you, Michael? Nice to see you again.
Now, we're going to talk about eye health and climate change. It seems like you can blame everything on climate change, no matter what. But there's a study out there we want to talk about a little bit that actually has some direct connections, it looks like, to eye health and the fact that we're just in the sun so much more, the dryness, some of the pollution, those kinds of things. Let's talk about the study.
Yeah, so not everyone agrees about humans' role in contributing to climate change, but everybody agrees climate change is real, that temperatures are getting warmer. It's a factual thing, and it does have impact on health in a number of ways, and some direct and some indirect. Some of the indirect ways that climate change affects health is just, in some countries, it's difficult for people to work during the hottest summer days, right? Because outside it's just downright dangerous. You can't stay hydrated enough to keep your body cool.
Right.
But there are also other direct effects of this that are really meaningful, and particularly we'll talk about how it affects the eyes.
Right, and it affects the eyes. Like one of the ways that we're talking about in how it affects the eyes is, in terms of climate change, it's making the planet hotter, obviously, and heat stroke of the eye, which I'd never heard of. If you suffer heat stroke, your eye has a defense mechanism against heat stroke as well, right?
Yeah, the reason that high fevers or high body temperature, which arises from heat stroke, is so bad is because literally the proteins in our body cook. They become denatured and all kinds of things happen. So a temperature of 104 in the body can occur in heat stroke quite easily. So heat stroke's a condition where the body heat rises. Often it's summertime dehydrated conditions, so you're not sweating enough to cool the body, and the body's compensating mechanisms to cool itself down fail, and the temperature kind of rises out of control, and it's a deadly condition, and within minutes it can irreversibly damage the brain and other parts of the body. But one of the areas that's most sensitive are the proteins in the lens inside the eye.
Right. And so this is really impacts people who have to work in the heat, roofers or farm workers and things like that, that don't have a lot of choice of just go ahead and go inside and turn the air conditioning on.
Right, yeah, exactly. If you can't escape the heat, if you can't cool down the body, some of these things are going to happen before you lose consciousness, before some of the life-threatening events. Just a rise in temperature in the lens of the eye will cause denaturing of proteins that are responsible for the clarity of the lens. So, the lens of the eye is an amazing structure because it's made out of the same type of proteins as the rest of our body, but it's transparent. And it has this ability to flex and focus when we're young that allows us to see the world well. But any disruption in the chemical nature of those proteins causes them to lose their clarity, and therefore we lose our vision.
Now, in these crystalline proteins, I think they're called, can they repair themselves, or is it kind of there's an attrition rate or something?
Yeah, they can't. They cannot repair themselves. So the body can create new proteins, but it doesn't replace the old. The lens of the eye is a little bit like a tree, that it grows throughout our life with little, added layers to it. But there's not a good way for the lens to repair itself. So this is irreversible change to vision. It may be gradual, it may not happen all at once, but when heat-related injury to the lens occurs, it's real and it's permanent.
And the result of the damage can it lead to cataracts that we're talking about here?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when the lens inside the eye becomes cloudy, we call that cataract, regardless of the reason for that. Usually it's related to birthdays, which is responsible for so many of our health problems. But here heat causes this clouding that leads to loss of vision. So this happens to people who are in the middle of their working years. And in so many countries where people don't have access to health care like we do here, I mean, here if you get a cataract, you go get it taken care of.
Right.
But in those countries, if you don't have access, you're blind. And one thing we've learned from our volunteer work in Armenia is when someone's blind in a family, it really takes two other family members to take care of them.
Right, and it also takes that pay, that income off the table as well. So now they become a dependent instead of a provider.
And the other people taking care of them also are less able to work because of their duties taking care of a family member. So it really has a multiplying effect when blindness or visual impairment affects somebody in these developing countries. So this is why it's such a concern, because they don't have air conditioning everywhere. They don't have the mechanism to protect themselves from the heat.
And another factor that in this study that we're talking about is increased UV radiation exposure in the eye itself, right? If we're more intense, more heat, and the air can, like in our Southern California climate, we get these hot, dry winds. and that can prevent the moisture in the eye from like absorbing some of the UV radiation, which I didn't realize the moisture in the eye absorbs that.
Well, and also, so dryness of the eyes is a big problem, right? We have that year round, but now increasingly it's happening in the summer. Another thing, when it's warmer, particularly if it's humid, is we get more mold growing in the environment. Mold is a primary driver of allergies, so we see a lot of ocular surface disease, ocular surface allergy, dryness, and just discomfort. And then finally, pterygium is a condition that is a growth on the surface of the eye that arises from UV exposure. And it's commonly seen in surfers. It's commonly seen in people who spend, you'll see gardeners and other people who spend a lot of time outside get this growth on usually the inner corner of the eye.
Yeah, and so when the liquid layer of the eye, our eye tears, aren't as thick, what are some of the things that can get in there? What are some of the things that can increase our risk?
Yeah, so a healthy tear film is the first defense against all the stuff in the environment that irritates and can injure our eyes, right? It flushes, a healthy tear film flushes stuff away. It flushes allergy particles that cause allergies away. And so when that's deficient, we have less defense. And simply the delicate eye is now susceptible to injury or irritation from more stuff in the environment.
Okay, so for those of us who are in this kind of community and we are not out in the field, thankfully, working that kind of thing, what can we do in terms of just protecting ourselves from some of these things? Is it the usual stuff, hats, sunglasses, things like that?
Those are the primary defenses, yeah. Some glasses that fit well and fit close to the face will provide a nice barrier to not just wind, but also UV light if they're UV rated, and better quality sunglasses are all 100% UV filtering. A hat adds about 40% more protection from UV just by simply shading the eyes. And another good idea is to take some lubricant drops before you go outside. Artificial tear drops available at the pharmacy without a prescription. Really any brand is okay, whatever's comfortable for you to take. Provide a good sort of protective barrier, a little bit like sunscreen does for your skin, at least for a little while. And you can take more of it if you start to feel like your eyes are getting dry.
Now those lubricant drops, can people overuse those? Is there a danger there? And I'm using them all the time kind of thing? Or should it be under some guidance?
That's a great question. It's always good to have an eye doctor give you some guidance. But a good general rule you can follow is that if you are taking lubricant drops and you're taking them more than about 4 times a day, it's good to buy the preservative-free variety. So they sell a variety that's preservative-free. Some of them have those little tear-off packets. Some of them are in a larger bottle. They're usually a little more expensive because of it's a little more advanced chemistry in them, but they are less irritating to the eye because the preservatives that keep bacteria from growing in the bottles are one of the things that can irritate the eyes. Okay.
So cataracts is kind of a slow-moving disease of the eye, or a hindrance of the eye. What are the first signs people will notice if I'm looking like, man, something's going on with my vision and it might be cataracts? What would be the telltale signs?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the earliest signs people don't notice much, and cataracts start to develop easily in our 30s and 40s. Really one of the first signs or symptoms of having that maturing of the lens is when we lose our reading vision in our 40s. So many of us have to wear reading glasses to see up close. That's not cataract per se because there's not necessarily clouding, but it is this dysfunction in the lens because it's becoming harder. Later, we have more difficulty reading fine print even with glasses. Driving at night, one of the primary symptoms is glare and halos off of lights that causes us to have difficulty seeing well. Seeing things that are just kind of in the shadows, low contrast environments like driving at night are one of the first places we start to see the beginnings of disability that comes from cataract.
Okay, and those are some of the telltale signs. And if they are feeling that, if they're experiencing that, they go to you. What kind of things can you do for them in terms of maybe stemming the tide of this a little bit, or is it just one of those things that's just going to happen?
Well, so some of the things we talked about are helpful in preventing cataract from growing, as well as nutritional things, eating a good balanced diet, vitamin C, the basic vitamins, antioxidants, the omega-3s, all of those types of dietary I'm not going to say supplements, but inclusions. If you eat a salad every day, you're doing pretty well. If you're eating fish twice a week, you're getting about 95% of the nutrients that you could need. And a lot of people like to take a supplement just to get a little bit extra. Not smoking. This also, prevents the oxidative damage that happens in the body, causes aging, not just in the eyes, but in other organs too. So taking good care of yourself is a way you can push cataract off. But often it's genetic. And, if your parents had it at a young age, you're going to probably have it at a young age.
Okay.
And so thankfully we have great treatment. So we can diagnose, we can adjust correction, whether it's glasses or contact lenses, and we can do cataract surgery when the time comes and you're really having some difficulty.
All right, Dr. John Hovannisian, keeping an eye on our health. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good to see you again, as always.
Great to see you, Michael.
You're watching This Day. We'll be right back with Sports Corner.